want to welcome everyone to the 2nd District Missouri State Senatorial Debate. In this debate, the winner of the primary will serve in the State Senate, as there's no Democrat on the November ballot. Before we begin, we want to thank the Missouri Cable Television Association for helping with the debate, Charter Communications for helping us distribute it, everyone watching, everyone in attendance tonight, and especially our candidates. Representative Chuck Gatschenberger, a state representative from Lake St. Louis. He's also a financial planner and extremely active in the charitable communities in Wentzville and Lake St. Louis. Dr. Bob Onder is a physician and also president of the Allergy and Asthma Consultants. He's a former state representative from Lake St. Louis and a former board member of the Missouri Right to Life. We also have former Representative Vicki Schneider. During her time in the legislature, she authored the Amber Alert Law. She's been a community volunteer serving on the boards of over 10 charities and a businesswoman with 30 years of experience in the construction industry. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight and appreciate sharing your views with everyone. We'll start with our opening statements. We agreed to give 2-minute opening statements, and we'll begin with Representative Gatschenberger.
Thank you. I'm going to read mine mainly. After leaving home at 16, I worked full-time to support myself, attending high school and trade school on my own. After graduating, I worked full-time at Walgreens to become their youngest Walgreens manager at the age of 21. I have started numerous companies and understand firsthand the struggles of what small businesses face. I was first elected to the State House in 2008, where I have fought to make Missouri friendlier to small businesses so that they can do what they do best, create jobs. And I will continue to fight for them in the State Senate. I have been chairman of local government for the last 4 years, one of the most important House committees. I voted for the largest income tax cut in Missouri history, reducing tax rates for small businesses and families up to 25%, the largest income tax in Missouri's history. I have voted for a balanced budget every single year without raising taxes in some of the toughest economic times that we have had. We have cut waste, delivered more funding to our local schools, all while maintaining a AAA bond rating and making Missouri only one of the few states to do so, and that happened on my watch. In order to stop President Obama and his fellow bureaucrats in Washington from taking away local controls of our school, I voted to stop Common Core standards to be implemented in the state of Missouri. I have been a champion of the Second Amendment rights and expanding the Castle Doctrine to ensure Missourians can protect themselves and their property. I have dedicated much of my time in the State House to protecting the innocent life of the unborn, including successfully requiring parental consent, increasing the waiting time period to have an abortion, and banning any government funding of abortions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next will be Dr. Onder.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Scott. I'd like to thank the Missouri Times and the Gateway Group for hosting this debate this afternoon. As Scott said in his introduction, I'm Bob Onder. I live with my wife Allison and our 6 children in Lake St. Louis. I'm a medical doctor and small businessman, former state representative. You know, our country just celebrated Independence Day, that day when our forefathers fought and liberated us from an oppressive foreign power. They did so in order to ensure for us the liberties of life and liberty and pursuit of happiness. And they did more than that. They preserved our liberties by enshrining it in a constitution that strictly limited the power of government. But today our liberty is threatened. It's threatened by that very expansion of government that our founders so feared. First of all, our liberty is threatened by oppressive taxation. Here in Missouri, we have as high of taxes as Massachusetts. Our liberty is threatened by Obamacare, which Barack Obama and the Democrats, of course, imposed on us. But I'm sorry to say, both of my opponents also voted to impose on you when they voted for an Obamacare exchange here in the state of Missouri. I will pledge to fight Obamacare at every turn. I am the small government fiscal conservative in this race, and for that reason I was endorsed and supported by Missouri Club for Growth. I am the pro-life candidate in this race, and therefore I am the only candidate endorsed by Missouri Right to Life. And I am the conservative in this race, and for that reason I'm endorsed by the conservative groups Concerned Women for America and Phyllis Schlafly's Eagle Forum. I have an A rating from the National Rifle Association, and I'm endorsed by 5 out of the 6 state representatives who represent the 2nd Senatorial District in the State House. Our state can do better. I look forward to the discussion this afternoon. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And lastly, Mrs. Schneider.
Thank you. I have been blessed in my life with a great family, wonderful education, and successful business. I've been in business over 30 years in the construction industry. Growing up in O'Fallon and living in St. Charles County, I can't think of a better place to call home. For all I have given, I sincerely want to give back to our community. I want to make sure that our children and grandchildren can enjoy the same benefits that I have. I want to unleash the great economic engine of free enterprise. I want to stand up for conservative fiscal policies, to defend our constitutional rights, to protect life or religion freedom from the overreach of federal policies. Serving as a state representative of the Missouri General Assembly was a wonderful opportunity. It also taught me that there were 2 types of people with whom I served. There were those who were there for the common good and those who were there for their own good. Sadly, we see far too many of these politicians, which makes it all more important that we elect people like ourselves, people who love our nation, who believe in limited government, and who share our values. As your next senator, I know I can make a difference, and with your help, I know I can win. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The candidates agreed to a couple pretty strict ground rules. One was we would keep the audience from clapping in between answers to save time. And we also agreed that during the discussion we would keep the discussion pretty tight to each candidate's opinions and completely stay out of any personal negative attacks. With that, we'd like to begin, and we'd like to start with the topic of taxes. Representative Gatschenberger, we'll begin with you. Did you agree with the tax cuts passed last session in the Missouri General Assembly?
Yes, I strongly agreed with them, and I actually voted for them. And when the governor overrode them, I was happy to vote on his override of that. I think that was a good measure, and that gave a break to small businesses and families, up to 25% savings to that. And first time we've done a tax break like that in about 100 years in the state of Missouri, and I was happy to initially vote for it and secondly vote for the override.
Dr. Onder?
Thank you. Well, taxes, Scott, are an extremely important issue. They're not just an economic issue, but they're an issue of liberty. You know, Chief Justice John Marshall famously observed, "The power to tax is the power to destroy." And Missouri is burdened with oppressive taxes. Every year, Missourians work from January 1st to April 18th to pay taxes to the government. You know, for 4 months, essentially, Missourians work as slaves of the federal and the state and the local government. In answer to your question, absolutely, I am in favor of the tax cut passed by the Missouri legislature this session, in which they required the override of the governor's veto. Although a modest tax cut, represents the first broad-based tax relief in Missouri history in 100 years. You know, I would note, though, that in the same session, the legislature also passed the largest tax increase in Missouri history. And I'm afraid to say that one of my opponents, not once but twice, voted for this massive tax increase. So I think that it is a complete cop-out when legislators say that they didn't vote to raise our taxes, they just voted to put an issue on the ballot to let us raise our own taxes. No, if you oppose tax increases, you stop them when you can. And I urge voters to stop this massive tax increase on the ballot on August 5th. Thank you.
Yes, I certainly agree that we need to be cutting taxes and helping middle income earners to keep more of their hard-earned money. I am not sure what the current legislators did this session. Did they vote for the biggest tax cut in Missouri history and then put a 3/4 cent sales tax on the ballot in August? Sends a mixed message. Cutting taxes or raising taxes? The state of Missouri, on an average, for the last 5 years, has around $100 million in delinquent sales tax per year. Now we want the citizens of the state to vote on an increase of sales tax. Is it hard for the department? It's hard for the Department of Revenue to collect the sales tax as it is now. People can rely on me to actually cut taxes. The bogus tax decrease turns out to do nothing, nearly nothing for the middle class, especially when you turn around and raise the sales tax. I'm a business person. I do a lot of business with local firms. I know that this would be harmful to businesses. Now, how can anyone claim to be supporting the tax payer when they vote to put something like this on the ballot that will strangle the small business?
Thank you very much. While staying on the subject of taxes, do you feel like after the latest round of tax cuts, the Missouri income tax should be cut any further? This time we'll start with Dr. Onder.
Yes, I do. I do believe that we need broad-based income tax relief. You know, after session after session after session, we have tax break after tax break that are targeted to politically favored special interests. And I believe what we need to do is lower the taxes for all Missourians and all small businesses, as the legislature did this session. But again, I agree with Ms. Schneider that it makes no sense at all to, on the one hand, pretend to be cutting taxes in a very modest way and then put a massive tax increase on the ballot.
Ms. Schneider.
You know, I've been in business for over 38 years, and I have paid taxes, and I don't mind paying taxes as long as we stay within our Constitution and spend our money wisely. There's nothing worse than me working 3 jobs that I work and not my money being spent on good programs. You know, I believe in helping people, but I believe in helping them get back on their feet. I don't mind my money going to helping people. That's why I belong to 10 different charitable organizations, you know, raising more money. When I became Woman of the Year for Leukemia Society, for raising the most money in the district, which represents 7 states. You know, so I don't mind helping people. I just think that our money needs to be spent wisely. I wish the federal government would spend their money wisely. You know, because when I pay my taxes, I pay 6% to the state, which I don't have a problem with paying that. I have a problem paying my 35% to the federal government because I don't believe that they spend my money wisely. And I wish they had a constitution that that they would have to be in a balanced budget like we do.
Thank you very much. Representative Gatschenberger.
Thank you. Yeah, I think our taxes are too high, and I think it was a good start when we had the tax bill this last year, and we're going to alleviate $486 million of the people's money. I think Missouri residents are a lot better prepared to spend their money than I am or the governor or you or anybody else. One of the things that I've always had as underlying is I'm not going to have any new job-killing tax bills coming up, and I will be looking at different ways to cut taxes.
Onto the issue of abortion. I know that's typically a large issue in Republican primaries. Just start with the basic question. Are you pro-life or pro-choice, and why? And we'll start with Mrs. Schneider.
I am pro-life. Anyone who has ever held a newborn child in their arms cannot imagine what life would be without that adorable presence. As a former state representative, I had a wonderful pro-life voting record. And as state senator, rest assured that I would continue to be 100% pro-life. The difference here between us is that I am also a mother and a grandmother. I believe there are currently 23 current male state senators and not a single female state senator. If we were going to be debating pro-life issues, I believe that it would strengthen our pro-life position to have at least one of our side to be able to speak from the heart as someone who has given birth.
Very much. Representative Gatschenberger.
I'm very much pro-life. It's not because I'm a constitutional conservative, or it's not because I'm a social conservative, which I'm both of those. And it's not just because it's consistent with my philosophy. The time that I became pro-life was about 35 years ago, when I went to my doctor's office and I heard for the first time my eldest daughter's heartbeat. At that point, I knew that she was not just a placenta or a thing or anything that anybody wanted to call it. That she was a person, she was conceived at conception, and she was a person. At that point, I would do anything to defend her life and the life of any other unborn.
Thank you very much. Dr. Onder.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Scott. Yes, I am pro-life. I've been pro-life for many years, going back to my high school and college days. You know, the dictator Joseph Stalin once observed, "One man's death is a tragedy, but 1,000,000 deaths is a statistic." It will never be a statistic to me that over 1,000,000 unborn children perish at the hands of abortionists in our country every year. Now, I've again, been a pro-life leader. Back in 2006, I chaired and was president of Missourians Against Human Cloning, the organization that fought Amendment 2, the Human Cloning Amendment, as we called it. In 2008, as a state representative, I carried the major pro-life bill of that year that passed the Missouri House. My pro-life leadership has been recognized by a number of groups. As I mentioned, I'm the only candidate endorsed by Missouri Right to Life, and I'm the only candidate endorsed by the pro-life groups Eagle Forum and Concerned Women for America. So I look forward to returning to the Missouri legislature, to the state senate, to fight for innocent human life like I always have. Thank you.
Very much. More specifically, this past session, there was a bill passed to put a 72-hour waiting period before someone can have an abortion. Vetoed by the governor, it'll be considered in September. If you were in the General Assembly now or in the state senate now, what would be your feelings on how would you vote to override the governor and impact this? And we'll start with Representative Gatschenberger.
Thank you. I actually will be in there this time when it comes up for consideration. And I've dedicated most of my time in the state house to protecting the innocent life of individuals. I was involved in having parental consent for an abortion, and also with the waiting time that a person has to have an abortion. I also brought up a bill this year that would take it from 24 hours to 72 hours for a waiting period to have an abortion. The legislature passed that bill, and it's going to be considered a little bit later this year, and I will be voting to override it. And I've also been endorsed 3 times previously by Missouri Right to Life in my different campaigns.
Thank you. Dr. Onder.
Yeah, yes, in answer to your question, I do support the pro-life bill that the legislature passed this session. This is a bill that would lengthen the waiting period for reflection on that life-ending decision that is abortion. You know, over the years, the legislature has passed these incremental pro-life bills. I think many of these bills serve to protect women as well as save the lives of innocent unborn children.
Thank you. Mrs. Schneider.
Yes, I would also believe that actually I think 72 hours is not long enough. I think when you're deciding to end a human being, that at least there should be different steps, different programs set where people would go in, women would go in, where they would know everything what they're doing. Because I believe that being a woman, it's a very emotional time, and you can't think straight at this time when you do get pregnant. You know, actually I was 17 when I got pregnant, and I understand everything about it because I was in the same boat as a lot of girls at that time. And I realized that you cannot think emotionally when you're caught up in it. You need some more time than just 72 hours to end a baby's life. You know, so I think we need to broaden that. We need to make it longer period of time. We need to educate these girls of everything that we possibly can educate them. First, to keep from getting pregnant. Second, if they are pregnant, to what they're actually doing. Because a lot of times people take this as the easy way out, and it isn't the easy way out. It really isn't. So I would like to make the time a lot longer than just 72 hours.
Thank you. Moving on to another issue that's always very important in Republican primaries, the Second Amendment. every session there are bills passed by the General Assembly, some sessions, many bills. At this point in our state's history, do you feel like that your Second Amendment rights are safe from the state government? And we'll start with Dr. Onder.
Yes, Scott, the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms is one of our most cherished rights as Americans under the Constitution. I've been a lifelong supporter of those freedoms. One summer back in high school, I was 18 at the time, I spent the summer washing dishes and cutting lawns. And I saved up some money, and my uncle Leroy, who also happened to be my personal firearms instructor as well, suggested that I use some of my funds to buy a life membership to the NRA. And so I did, and so I've been a life member of the NRA ever since. I'm a hunter, I'm a target shooter, I'm a CCW holder. I have an A rating from the National Rifle Association. I can be trusted with your Second Amendment rights. I would note that one of my opponents in this race has a B- from the NRA. As to the safety of our gun rights at the state level, Governor Nixon's Department of Revenue seriously breached our rights when it sent our concealed carry data not once but twice to the federal government. A clear violation of the law, a law that he himself signed. I'll feel better when we have a Republican governor. So regarding, I am a supporter of the right to keep and bear arms, and I always will be. Thank you.
Mrs. Schneider.
Yes, I doubt sincerely that our Second Amendment rights are threatened at the state level due to that we have the super majorities that our Republican Party enjoys in both House and Senate. I was the only girl out of 5 brothers. And actually, I would say I'm the only boy in the family because I'm the only one that went hunting when I was little. I can tell you a story that I was sitting next to a tree hunting for squirrel with my dad, and it was pretty cold outside, and I had mittens on. And I went to go shoot, and it's kind of hard to shoot with mittens on. So my dad said that if you're going to be a real hunter, you're going to have to shoot without the mittens. So, I also hold a concealed carry. As a child, I was taken, and I believe that I want to be protected, so I do have my own concealed carry. But, it's our right. It's our Second Amendment right, and it's just like our founders of this country, our great nation of America, gave us that right to hold and bear arms. And so I want to protect myself, especially protect my grandchild that's always with me. So I will, even though I know that something was mentioned about maybe one of the other opponents have a B-, it's not that any of us are any less of gun rights than anyone else. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Gatschenberger.
No, I don't think that our rights are safe in the state of Missouri as long as Obama's in office and Nixon. What was referred to earlier, he gave information a couple of times to the federal government. Once the Obama administration gets that information, who knows what they're going to do with it to law-abiding people. One of the things we did in the legislature was investigate our governor. First of all, he said he didn't give the information. Then after a while, he relented and said he did give the information out to that. We put laws into effect to keep he and his cabinet from making any of those decisions, again, getting any of that information out. And at the same time, we put penalties in there for any bureaucrats to let any of the information out. And then also, with the privacy of that, there's so many states and federal government that's accumulating information on you, we need to nip that in some fashion so that doesn't come out anymore. I've been a lifelong supporter of the Second Amendment. I'm the one that's changed right to carry from 23 down to 21 in the process to 19, and also expanded the castle doctrines.
Well, with all the laws that have been passed recently, could you think of any other gun laws that could possibly need to be passed to protect gun rights from the state government? And this time we'll start with Mrs. Schneider.
No, I don't think there's any other laws that, as long as that we have our Second Amendment, that we have a right to carry, I think that's what we need to do in order to, I know they were trying to put some restrictions on gun shows. I don't think there should be restrictions on gun shows. So I don't believe so.
Representative Gatschenberger.
Once again, as long as Obama and Nixon are in there, they're always going to find ways to erode some of your gun rights. And the legislature always has to be on guard to actually defend against that all the time. You have to be looking at what is coming down the way. The amount of ammunition now is one of the things. You know, Obama's been one of the best ammunition salesmen around. So I think we always have to keep aware of what's going on with the gun laws and be ready to combat it.
Yeah, Dr. Onder.
Well, yes, in regard to do we need another provision in our law in Missouri? Absolutely. I am a strong supporter of Amendment 5, which will be on our ballot this August 5th. Amendment 5 will add to the Missouri Constitution the provision that declares the right to keep and bear arms an unalienable right in our state and commits our state to push back against intrusions by the federal government. So I am a big supporter of Amendment 5, and I encourage all our listeners to vote for it.
With that, we're going to come to our break in this debate. When we come back, we'll get to discuss a topic that has been one of the biggest in the entire area that uniquely has reached out to St. Charles County, and that's education and some of the schools that have failed in the metro area. So with that, we'll be back in a moment. Thank you. And welcome back to our 2nd District Missouri State Senatorial Debate. Again, the winner of the race in the primary, in the Republican primary, will go on to serve as they're unopposed in the fall. So we're very excited that you've come back to join us. And we're going to start off with a topic that's been greatly discussed throughout the last year in the metro area, and a topic that kind of unexpectedly has reached out and touched St. Charles County in the 2nd Senatorial District, and that's the education and some of the school transfer issues. Most of the discussion on the education issue and on the failing schools has always focused on St. Louis County and the students in the failing schools. However, those students have now been, through some different transfer laws, sent out to schools that touch the 2nd Senatorial. I think everyone in the state, not just your prospective constituents, would be interested to know, do you agree with the legislature's plan on how to handle the transfers, or do you agree with the governor's plan on how to handle transfer students? And with that, we'll start with Representative Gatschenberger.
Thank you. Well, first of all, the governor had no plan. He didn't come up with anything till he was forced by the legislature. Once we investigated that, then he came up with a plan to do something. One of the things, I voted for the transfer bill. The reason why I did that is by no fault of their own, the kids were going to a non-accredited school. And we deserve in the state of Missouri to provide a good education to everybody in the state of Missouri. One of the things that I would do to change that is to actually get the schools accredited, whatever that would be, whatever process we would have to be. One of the things we need to do for all our schools is to get Common Core out of our system altogether and get them back to the point where they can actually become accredited. And also, Francis Howell was not given, or not supposed to be given, the money that they needed for the tuition of the kids, and I think that's wrong for Francis Howell. Just because Francis Howell did the right thing is no reason they should be penalized.
Dr. Onder.
Well, Scott, I think we need to step back and look at the bigger picture here. There are school districts in our state that have been failing their communities and failing the students that they serve for over a generation. It is imperative that we address these problems of failing school districts in our state, and that we get these kids an opportunity to have a quality education. Now, the 1993 student transfer law is by no means perfect, but I think the Missouri Board of Education absolutely was playing games and probably breaking the law when it created this new Normandy school district without any accreditation status whatsoever, clearly as just a means of circumventing the law. I think there are a number of good points to the transfer bill that the legislature passed this session. One is the idea of letting buildings within school districts that are performing, that are giving kids a good education, the opportunity to be accredited on a building-by-building basis. And I think the modest school choice program within the bill that allows some children in failing schools to attend private schools was also a positive aspect. I'm a strong supporter of public education, and I remain committed to working with any Democrat or any Republican to help solve this problem of failing schools. I'm just not sure our governor is one of those people.
Mr. Schneider.
I don't believe in transferring students away from their homes. Families need to be committed to their own schools. There are 20,000 students in the city of St. Louis Public Schools. When you remove children out of our school districts, that leaves what the kids are left behind. You take all the money away from the school districts, and then what's left behind? I disagree with the legislators passed because it created an unelected transfer authority that would have the power to distract to local school districts whether or not they would need to take transfer students. The solution is not to bounce children around from school to school like ping pong balls. If that district fails, how could the region possibly take on their problems? We need to make St. Louis school districts into smaller districts. That way, if a school district is unperforming, and then the state can bring the management professionalism and resources to turn those districts around. We need to solve our education problem at the local level by saving those districts rather than burdening good districts like Fort Zumwalt or Francis Howell and Wentzville with more students.
Thank you very much. Even more locally, there's been a lot of criticism heaped on districts such as Francis Howell for demanding that they get full tuition payments to educate students that have left failing schools in St. Louis County. Do you feel like districts like Francis Howell are wrong to demand full tuition? And we'll start with you, Dr. Onder.
Well, yeah, I think the problem here is, no, I don't think the Francis Howell School District is wrong. I think the problem here is, again, that the State Board of Education is playing games to circumvent the law. The 1993 law provided for school districts to receive tuition for students that they accepted, and the law had a provision for that transportation of those students to be paid for. The state school board played this game of creating this new Normandy school district without any accreditation status to circumvent the law. So my fault is with the state school board, not the Francis Howell School District.
Mrs. Schneider.
You know, I'm just trying to remember, I also went to, I went to Normandy School when I was younger, before I moved out to O'Fallon. At that time, the school district was a good school district, but we had a lot of involvement with our parents and the community. Then I went out to a small town in Josephville with a Catholic school, and they wouldn't accept us because I had a couple of brothers that needed special attention. So then they had to send us to Fort Zumwalt because there was 5 brothers and myself. And I can remember feeling like, where do I belong? You know, because the Catholic school wouldn't take us because they didn't have the education to teach us at that time. So we go to Zumwalt, and we kind of felt like we're, you know, not fitting there also. What I'm afraid of right now, what they're doing with the public school district, is that for Normandy to become back into the state hands, is that they want to transfer those students back into Normandy School District. Our children are not ping pongs. They got to feel like they're wanted and loved in order to get a good education. So I believe that they should stay in Francis Howell if that's what they want to do, or into Zumwalt, and they should pay the tuition that they need to pay in order for them to get the good education that they need.
Representative Gatschenberger.
Repeat the question again. What'd you say?
Do you feel like Francis Howell is wrong to demand full tuition for students that are leaving St. Louis County to attend their school?
Okay. Absolutely not. I don't think that Francis Howell should be penalized for doing what was right. And I don't think that school districts should be penalized for doing what is right. One of the things that a lot of people were saying that property taxes were going to go up because they're accepting students from Normandy. If Francis Howell did the right thing, they shouldn't be penalized with it, and the property taxes should not go up. And I think Francis House should be fully compensated, and anything else is unacceptable.
Probably the hottest topic last session in the General Assembly was Medicaid expansion. Just to be blunt, do you support the expansion of Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act? And we'll ask you, Representative Gatschenberger.
Give me the hot one first off. Huh? No, I do not. I would be all for reforming Medicaid. Right now, it's full of waste. You get substandard care from there. The costs that they have are higher and higher all the time. Then there's just a lot of things. You can't keep throwing money at something that's broke and in thinking that it's going to work. The definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing expecting different results. I think we need to focus more on Missouri Care rather than Obamacare. We need to increase the transparency of the healthcare system. We also have to find out about the infections, what happens with those and what the outcomes are with those. One of the things we also have to do, we need to get in and take care of the malpractice. We need to keep our doctors from moving and closing their offices as a result of higher costs for the medical malpractice cases that they have. So I think reform, let it set, and then I am fully in support of actually expanding it if people need it. I want to give it to people that need it, the people that just don't want to, and I'm not in favor of doing that. So reform and then take a look at it for expansion or not.
Dr. Onder.
Well, Scott, yeah, thank you. Well, as you know, I know a little bit about the healthcare system. I went to Washington U Medical School. I've spent 30 years in private medical practice. I even studied health law for a time at St. Louis U Law School. But more important than any of that, every day in my office, I meet patients who are concerned about the future of our healthcare system and about their own healthcare. And I do treat Medicaid patients, and they know better than anyone that the Medicaid system is a dysfunctional system. Well, I think it's at this time in our state history, now more than ever, we need people in the legislature who understand our healthcare system, and I think I can be one of those people. But no, we need to work to reform Medicaid, not throw more money into a broken system.
Mr. Schneider.
We already have Medicaid in Missouri. When I was first elected in 2003, when we first came in, we did Medicaid reform. There were people on the tax rolls that were worth over $250,000 a year that was on Medicaid. We reformed it and we got a lot of the waste that was out of it. Whenever you set up programs, there's always going to be waste, and there's always going to be where people are going to abuse the system. With the guidelines that were set down from the federal government for Obamacare, what I don't understand is that they set up Obamacare, but they wanted Medicaid to do the dispersing of it. If the federal government wanted Obamacare, or whatever they call it, then why didn't they administer it? You know, there's problems there's a whole lot of things wrong with Obamacare, but what they did, they made it where it comes down from the federal government, and then they want Medicaid to administer it to everyone, but they forget about the kids. So that's why they want the states to set up Obamacare, you know, so that the Medicaid will take care of the kids. There's someone in my office, actually, that has to be on insurance, and they're the ones that have told me about they won't insure their children. So there's just, why don't we open our borders up so we can have other insurance companies come in the state of Missouri to bid on our insurance? I would love to be one of 5 builders in the state, and I'm the only one that can build in the state of Missouri. What kind of deal would that be for me? And I think we need to expand to have more insurance companies come in the state of Missouri, so that way we can have competitive rates.
Thank you. And the last question is, I don't know why you decided to run for state senate. I mean, it's obviously a sacrifice to spend a lot of time in Jefferson City. And why if you explain why you did run, what is there an issue set that you want to focus on and become an expert in the Missouri Senate? And we'll start with you, Mrs. Schneider.
You know, to tell you a story about how I decided to run for office. Chuck Gross was running for state senate at the time, and he asked me to help him with his campaign. And I said, what is it actually that you do? Because I never have served in a elected position ever in my life. All I did was from the time that I was, in 1980, I got involved in a lot of charities with a good friend of mine, Rich Pisani, that brought me to St. Louis Ambassadors, and we created a business organization to help small businesses get kicked off. Then there was a Leukemia Society, then there was a Cancer Society, then it was, I can't name all the different charities that I was involved in. So at the time, it's just like, I was going to all these meetings thinking about that I was helping people, and I was doing great things, helping them. But I thought, what can I do to reach more people on a broader scale? And I thought I could run for state representative. And that's why I ran for state rep. Within the first 2 weeks of being a state legislator, I passed the Amber Alert bill, which is very dear to my heart because as a child, when I was in 5th grade, I was taken as a child. And it amazes me from 5th grade until I was 45 years old at the time that there was no laws in place to protect our children. I would have just assumed that everything was taken care of, and it wasn't. So I like to expand on protecting children, regardless if it's keeping other people from stealing your children or education or what it may be, you know, because I don't think apparently we're not done because there's still children being taken out there. There's still children being abused. And that's something that grows dear to my heart. So that's why I got involved in politics. After passing the Amber Alert bill, it's been contributed to saving thousands of kids' life. So if I don't do anything else, I've done what God has sent me here to do.
Thank you. Representative Gatschenberger.
Thank you. Why am I running? One of the reasons why I'm running is we have not recovered yet from the recession that we have been in. One of the things I'd like to do is create jobs, jobs, and jobs in the state of Missouri. One of the ways you do that is get out of the way of small business. Small business is the one that employs majority of the people. That's where majority of the new jobs come from, is small business. What we need to do is make Missouri a friendlier state and get out of the small businesses way and do what they do best, which is create jobs. We must stop the job-killing lawsuits that are out there. What we need to do is limit the amount that lawyers get when there's a judgment that comes down and give it to the people that actually have been injured. We just need to start creating jobs and doing whatever we can to do that. What we need to do is focus a lot on the community colleges and the universities and get ready to train the next workforce that's coming up. There's a couple of different programs that I've been tracking. What they do is the university or the college actually helps train the people for the next generation jobs. And that's something that I'd like to start here, especially with the A+ program into the trades. But what we need is well-trained workers for the next generation.
Dr. Onder.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Well, I am running to create jobs by reforming our tax code and limit regulation. I'm running to improve education, not only for those students in the failing schools that we discussed earlier, but by protecting students who are in performing schools from this horrible and unproven federal experiment known as the Common Core curriculum. I'm running to fight the federal government's overreach into our civil liberties and our privacy. And I'm running to return government to its proper role of defending individual liberty under our Constitution.
Thank you. I want to thank you for your candid answers, especially some of the personal narratives that you brought into this afternoon's debate. We'd like to begin with our closing statements, and with those, we'll start with Mrs. Schneider.
Thank you. I am running for office because I believe I can make a bigger difference by being the senator than just sitting on the sidelines. I wish I could talk to every single person in this district. I would put my picture, the reason why I put my picture on the signs and the vehicles, not because I just think I'm just wonderful looking, was because I'm a human being, and voters are human beings. I'm not going to try to make someone look bad so that I can make myself look good. I've done good enough for Missouri, and I believe the voters will see me and my record and my character and say that they want my positive message, my style, and my integrity.
Very much. Representative Gatschenberger.
Thank you. I have a plan to move Missouri forward. I pledge to not raise any new job-killing taxes. I will create better and more accountability with oversight with the taxes to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse by requiring every department that we have in the state to justify their reason why we should be funding them year after year. And I want to see if we can get the lawsuits either diminished or get the health department, get health in our state moving better, so we have the doctors that are willing to stay here to do their businesses here. And I don't think that when we have a lawsuit come up and the filing and the awards come down, that the money should be going, majority of it should be going to the trial attorneys. I support training. Like I said earlier, what we need to do is start training the people for the next generation. We need to get very technical people involved with that, and a lot of places are doing that, and I think that's something that we should do here. One of the things I want to do also is do ethics reform in the state of Missouri. I had a couple of bills this last year that didn't make it to the floor, not even to committee. I think the lobbyists are out of control, and I think what we should do is bring them in somewhat on some of the lobbyists, not all of them. I will work to reform the health care by increasing the transparency on it, and I will fight for the Second Amendment and consider also the Castle Doctrine to increase that as well, to protect our rights.
Yeah. And lastly, Dr. Onder.
Well, thank you. Again, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Fawn. I'd like to thank the Missouri Times and for hosting this debate this afternoon. You know, it's sometimes said that people run for office for one of two reasons. They either want to do something or they want to be somebody. You know, in my life, I've been blessed by more than any man could ever hope for or deserve. I already possess the greatest titles a man could have: son, brother, husband, father. And I get to go to work every day, and I'm blessed with hundreds of wonderful people who I call patients, who call me doctor. No, I'm not running for another title in front of my name. I'm not running to be wined and dined by lobbyists, and I'm certainly not running to push Obamacare or to raise your taxes. I'm running because this state and this country are hurting. You know, we are 5 years into what has been the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression. Here in Missouri, we are 47th out of 50 states in economic growth. Our kids and our grandkids have to leave our state for jobs and opportunities elsewhere. I am running because we need to restore liberty to our state. We need to limit government to its rightful place in our lives. And I am running because I believe that a nation, a state, can only remain free as long as it remains committed to live by those laws which are ours under the laws of nature and nature's God. So, it is now up to you, the voters of the 2nd Senatorial District, to decide who you want to be your next state senator. For these reasons, all those I stated today in this debate, I ask for your vote. I ask for your support between now and August 5th. God bless you all. God bless the great state of Missouri. Thank you.
I want to personally thank you all, and on behalf of everyone at the Missouri Times, I want to thank you for coming here this afternoon and participating in this debate. I want to remind everyone watching at home that the primary will be who decides. There's no opponent in November. And we want to thank you all. And remember, if you'll stay after the break, we're going to have a roundtable discussion on today's debate and the other issues in Missouri politics. Thank you very much.